would like to welcome you to a very special coffee house of PeaceSmiths. I'd like to introduce Margie Carr, who's one of the board members of PeaceSmiths. And I'm another one, I'm Judy Sanford Guys. And so while we're all very sad, I think we're also very, very happy that we have a wonderfully attended and a wonderfully programmed coffee house for us tonight. Before, of course, it would not be a PeaceSmiths event if we didn't have some announcements. So I'll give you a bit of the outline for this evening. It's tough for all of us, and we want to thank every person, and every one of you actually is involved in making tonight happen. And for bringing the things you brought, for putting up the chairs, the lights, everything. Some more things like some coffee and sugar is on its way. But we really need your help to continue this and all the other activities that PeaceSmiths on. You met Margie as it came in. We also ask you to let us know. We have a couple of sign-ups. This is entitled Moving the Work Forward. We need to know what area of interest you have as we work together to move PeaceSmith forward into the lovely, still necessary work that we have. For some people, it may be we're trying to put together a computerized database. Some of us are going to be computerizing lists and putting it together into a formal database. For some of us, it's working on the forum committee. For others, it may be the coffee house. Oh, and you're not restricted to asking or informing us of more than one area of interest either. But there is so much work that needs to be done. We also do need people who may be available and could be called upon to help with sorting through, and there's quite a lot of PeaceSmith materials that are in storage. And we need to reorganize that, and frankly, we need to move it. And so we definitely have a number of projects that are going on that need to be completed by the end of the year. And as we know, the weather is starting to shift and it is no longer fall. So particularly if you have that interest, please let us know and you have that availability. And that would be likely to be during the day or during the weekends. So, and if there's another area that hasn't been mentioned, please write it down and let us know. And so that we can, start working with everybody to take care of things. And I would now like to call on Kimberly Wilder and introduce her to you. We like that many of you already know.
So you ready? Perfect. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for all your patience as we have the first PeaceSmiths without our leader and driving force, but everyone did a good job doing the pieces that they remembered and the pieces that were important to them. I hope everyone feels like we accomplished something. I feel like we accomplished something. My piece is to tell you that there's going to be a life celebratory event. A lot of you remember when everything first happened, we promised that there was going to be a wonderful celebration of Susan's life like she wanted. And her sister Nancy Blake and Cindy, her friends that's upstate, are working with PeaceSmiths to get this accomplished. And we're kind of narrowing in on a date, but it's probably going to be January. And Ian and I are the co-chairs of that committee. So as everyone's signing up for all their committees and interests, that's one of the things that we got signed up to do. So it's going to be, we're still in the planning stages of it, and if you have ideas for presentations that you want to do, you can start letting us know. Some of the ideas that there's so many people that are going to want to participate that it might be done by organizations sending a representative or different things. One of the things is that Nancy Blake, of course, has a slideshow of Susan's life and when she was younger that's very meaningful to her, so there will be presentations like that. And that's it, and we know there's going to be a coffee house next month and onwards and onwards. Next month's coffee house was really planned to have a big space of time for everyone to share. So we're going to try to do the open mic early tonight, so I hope people that have poems or responses. Somebody's going to do a dance response about Susan's life. That would be beautiful today. And also know that the next coffee house, there's going to be a lot of time for remembrance dedicated, and it will be dedicated to Susan.
We know that one celebratory event is not enough. One thing I did forget and to mention, and it is very important, we do need to expand and actually put into one place the listing of performers from the past and all, and hopefully from the future. So for those of you in the audience who have been performers here at the Coffee House, or you know of other people, if you can email that information, we'll leave the email addresses out there on the table before you leave. If you can email to us the information and preferably the contact information, but we really do need to recreate that list. It's part of the archive. One of the things also that we've discussed as a possibility for as part of the celebratory event is many of you have written or emailed or created writings about Susan already, and what we are going to do is we're going to post that on the website that we have. We're going to hope to post those writings and new writings that you are creating as your offerings for the celebratory event, that we'll be able to have them posted and probably collected, but definitely that they will have a life beyond the very moment that that you speak your words. So in some cases, this may be the best way for people to share their thoughts about Susan, because that will be the way of reaching every person beyond what can be heard.
Right now, we're going to have Tana, who's a local poet. She's a professor at Nassau Community College. She has 2 books of poetry out, and she just came out with a book of poetry that she edited with, I believe, 63 women poets in it. She's put together a special presentation this evening based on that book and for Susan's wife who just passed. I'm very excited to hear this, and I just want to turn the mic over to Patty now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am honored to be here. I want to read just a few poems in her honor. Susan asked me to read 2 poems in particular, but one of them I read at her funeral, the posthumous poem, "That's Susan, She Sure Is Some Tomato," right? So I'm not going to be doing that again tonight, but I'm going to read the other one that she wanted me to read. It's entitled "Because." This is from our new anthology. All the women up here in this anthology. It's entitled "Songs of Seasoned Women," and Susan was a seasoned woman. So here is the one she wanted me to read, and I'm going to read 2 others in her honor also. Because a puppy is now, while the news is grief for yesterday and fear for tomorrow, we drive to the animal shelter the Sunday after the towers collapse. The shelter is packed with children eager to make a dog wag its tail or be licked by a cat's sandpaper tongue. Parents who had said no, or when you're older, are eager to give their kids something to watch beside the rising toll. I heard the news in the car as I drove home from my 2nd radiation treatment, and it seemed unreal at first. Unreal as the news in August when a smiley-faced computer voice announced, "You've got cancer." Unreal until the surgeon cut the nodule from my breast and I could feel the tender reality. "It's small," he said, "a pea or a pearl or a nuclear reactor," I thought, and where else are they lurking, these ticking bombs? September explosions and the thousands dead make the threat inside my body seem smaller. So we stop in front of a sleepy chocolate pointer with white patches on her face and chest and the tip of her tail. Careful for the stitches in her belly, we place her on the table where she shakes off sleep and invites us to fall in love. Before we walk out with her in my arms, a sign warns, "Are you ready for a 15-year commitment? And I say, sure, I'll take it. Give me 15 years. Well, you can see why Susan wanted that. And there's another poem in here that I have that I think is very appropriate for her too. It's called Defying Gravity. And Susan was a wonderful one to defy gravity, right? All right. Defying gravity. My mother struggles to rise from her chair, wrestling with dignity to stand on her own. Earth draws her near, holds fast. When I reach out, she waves me away, wants to do it herself, the way she has for 96 years. The day the Pope died, a great white oak snapped in my yard before a strong gust of wind fell across the bridge and into the pond. Between birth and death is a sweet freedom to live beyond regret, beyond despair. That's what Susan did. I have one more I'd like to read that's not in the new anthology. And I have copies of this book on the back here. Susan liked this little chapbook especially well. And I've never had a reading so perfectly timed for this. This book is entitled When the Light Falls Short of a Dream. And indeed the light will inevitably fall short of the dream. But Susan was a great one to appreciate every moment, every single hour. And here we are, on the eve before we turn back the clock. We fall back. So, here it is for Susan, who appreciated every hour. Fall back. You can squander the hour you've saved on sleep. You can let it slip till morning, then casually flick back the clock. But if you wait for an hour you want to linger and savor the time you've reclaimed from spring, you'll have that hour to fall back on when the light falls short of the dream. For Susan. I'd like to introduce the next reader, Barbara Barnard, Professor of English at Nassau Community College. Barbara Barnard.
Thanks, Patty. I'm going to read three poems from the book. Wolf Season. I smelled your wolf scent on the wind and knew your wheels had touched ground. Brother wolf, so many seasons absent, come walk with me. The woods beckon just ahead. I trot behind you at first, and then we are side by side on a narrow path, our flanks touching. I nudge my muzzle into the thick fur between your shoulder blades as we make our way down the path. There is more gray in your pelt now than the last time. It becomes you. Now we are running, and you ease out ahead of me on the path. Trees guide us on either side. We stretch our legs and glide easily over a fallen log, its bark laced with green lichen. We burst suddenly out of trees into a sun-drenched clearing, our tails wagging. We play tag a while in the meadow, tossing a stick, chewing fallen tree branches. Then we stop, panting to rest. We lie down in a scattering of wildflowers, purple, yellow, brightest blue. Our muzzles touch, and we remember other seasons. You doze briefly, your paws twitching with the dream of the hunt. Your breath comes fast as storms when you bring down your prey. Bees make a warm buzz visiting the flowers. The sun drops lower in the sky over the treetops. Suddenly, the hum of a cicada becomes the roar of a jet lofting above our forest. My heart contracts. This is called Swallower of sins. Give me your sweet sins, give me your round and glorious sins, your sharp and pointy transgressions, your broadsword-sized lies, your loved ones' needs unmet, the hungry mouths of their demands pursuing you in your dreams. Give me your truckload of reasons unvoiced, your harvest of excuses baled and scattered across your landscape. You don't need them. Give me your swollen and bulbous worries. Give up your naughty-muscled sins, twisted and sour in your belly, their hot vomitus creeping into your throat day and night. Pull those braided hempen ropes of guilt right out of your mouth. Open wide. Their strands scratch past your teeth, your lips. Let go of them. Do it now. And I will lay them out, your misshapen bundles, arrayed on the grass. Then I will give you a broad grin, a wink, tilt back my head, spreading my lips wide, and lower your swords of torment one by one into my commodious throat. 1, 2, 22. There, you see? All gone, vanished, devoured. For I am the swallower of sins. This last one is called Bathysphere. Today I'm remembering the story you told me about the crying divers. Strong men, highly trained in the skills of deep sea diving, fit and ready as Navy SEALs, but who can fathom the mysteries of the deep? You'd seen them more than once emerge from a long dive beneath Earth's fragile watery sheath. You'd seen them remove their tanks, their masks, the red diver down flag lowered. The divers would sit at rest in their wetsuits, arms slack, heads bowed. They've had no problems with breathing tanks, masks, or hostile marine animals on this dive. All the same, they hang their heads, catching their breath. One man sobs, another's eyes well with tears. Soon they are all heaving with some waterborne sorrow or knowledge, some fear or longing unfathomable. They weep, not ashamed, a shared cleansing. Later they will drink cups of coffee and laugh together, a return to air and light from the stillness of the deep. But our own descent was not in wetsuits with separate tanks. We were sealed in the bathysphere, breathing the same air, the same dreams for a span. We gave ourselves time to come up, avoiding the bends, re-emerging, drinking in once again the ordinary air of life on the surface. We looked back once or twice at the steel ball in which we made our journey. We kiss, smiling, and begin to swim, our strokes taking us in different directions once again. Behind my smile, something catches in my throat, and I know that one thing the divers felt was loss. Like me, they couldn't put a name to what they lost as they drifted cautiously, almost reluctantly, back to the surface. Thanks.
A little while ago, someone introduced Maxwell, dear Maxwell. There would have been a poet laureate if it wasn't for our next reader, and that's Paula Camacho, who really gave 2 years of her life to make this happen, and I want to just give her a hand here publicly for that. Paula Camacho.
I just want to say the first and last time I met Susan Blake was at Maxwell Cordon-Reed's acclamation as Nassau County Poet Laureate by the poetry community on June 24th at Cedarmere. And I could tell she was a spirit of light. She made great efforts to be there that day because she wanted to speak about Max and for Max. She was quoted in Newsday, and I'm very thankful for that, and I can see why she is going to be missed here. This is my poem from Seasoned Women. Sister Shaman, say your magic words, take us to another time. Remind me of when we took for granted the presence of each other, When we travel through a river of school, five and dime stores, movie theaters, boys, say the names of long ago places I can enter in spiritual shoes. Unravel your stories like soft silk. Spin your spell as we sit together over the warmth of coffee. In your company, I am always young, waiting for you after school when we hold hands to cross the street to the other side. Thank you.
Appropriately, the next poet will be reading No Replacement, Brean Montebianco.
No replacement. I am the last of my generation who spans the gap between English and an old Sicilian dialect. The translator of telephone calls, a mediator for questions, a decipherer for visiting relatives. No offspring or cousin to connect. No voice that travels from vast spaces to spaces in the heart. Thank you.
Margaret Shaw next, a professor of reading in Nassau. Will be reading her beautiful poems.
I could say that these two poems that I'm going to read are about loss or abandonment, but in reality, what they're really about is the fear of change. First one is called Too Long Gone. Perhaps you have been gone too long. The earth that once bore your footprints has worn smooth and wouldn't recognize your once familiar step. You, the one who told me how you hated change, have made the world change in the path behind you, have turned the once beloved word home into forgotten. What great adventure have you found out there beyond the gate that once rang with your music, that signaled celebration in your return, and now sings only songs of wind and emptiness? And what adventure can I find without you, free at last when I no longer long for freedom? How has your once familiar face grown older, when in my mirror I see just a stranger? If I would meet you on a street in summer, how would you greet me, if you even knew me? Perhaps you have been gone too long to wonder or remember how we spent our time together. Perhaps you would not know me if you saw me and have forgotten even how to find me. The road beyond the gate does not invite me. Some are made for seeking, others finding. I glance out past the trees and garden, listen for the gate to close behind you, hear your footsteps and your soft voice singing. The next one is called Omens of Passing. It isn't just because they're gone I weep. The old tree loses leaves each fall, yet lives. The new spring brings new buds of blossom sweet, that in the summertime will be complete. Then fruits will come from summer's warm caress, the tree rejoicing in the birth it gives. What vast creative powers it does possess, with autumn leaves of splendor to impress. But I have seen the old trees bend and die, a slow death, when the roots are choked of breath, and bark splits open wide as if to sigh, and slender branch no longer seeks the sky. It isn't just because they're gone, I believe. If roots are torn asunder, too soon death will steal away the cradle of the seed and swallow up tomorrow in its greed. Thank you.
I saved Pat Falk for last because, like me, she's had so many decades with Susan, and she'll share what she wants to say.
Hi. Susan was a great spirit. We had many conversations about how large the changes have to be, and also how small sometimes we need to bring ourselves down to. God, humility. So I'm going to read two poems, one for Susan and one sort of kind of to Susan. The one that I want to read for her is by Denise Levertov. who was a wonderful, incredible poet who passed several years ago. But Denise Levertov was also known not just for her poetry, but she insisted that poets be politically active, and she was a favorite of Susan's as well. But this is called Making Peace. And Denise Levertov told the story about, it came from, she was giving a poetry reading, and the audience was all dark, and somebody from the audience screamed out, "The poets have to give us peace." And that's how this poem came about. Making Peace. A voice from the dark called out, "The poets must give us imagination of peace, to oust the intense, familiar imagination of disaster. Peace, not only the absence of war, but peace, like a poem, is not there ahead of itself, can't be imagined before it is made, can't be known except in the words of its making, grammar of justice, syntax of mutual aid, a feeling towards it, dimly sensing a rhythm, is all we have until we begin to utter its metaphors, learning them as we speak. A line of peace might appear if we restructured the sentence our lives are making, revoked its reaffirmation of profit and power, questioned our needs, allowed long pauses. A cadence of peace might balance its weight on that different fulcrum. Peace, a presence, an energy field more intense than war, might pulse then, stanza by stanza, into the world, each act of living one of its words, each word a vibration of light, facets of the forming crystal. And this poem is one of my poems in Songs of Seasoned Women. It's called What is Sufficient? And it's something that Susan and I both have had to try to learn. It actually sprung from, if you're familiar with the Passover Seder, there's part of the ritual says Dayenu, Dayenu, and that means what is sufficient. So this is my poem, What is Sufficient. And there's a you in the poem, and right now I'd like it to be Susan. What is sufficient? One room, a window facing east, sunlight on the table where I sit, thinking how time moves so slowly as I age, as I read slowly, entering the text. Sunlight on my neck penetrates the network of small bone. I would like to see you, speak with you, before I'm finished reading, before the sunlight fades to vacant shadow and I fall asleep, someone else inhabiting the room, reading, words on the page, arranged into a story, your story, my story, your room, my room, the first and last, the only true commitment.
Thank you very much. This feels like even a little concert. We had a little taste of this. It's 119 poems by 63 women, and each one leads to the other. And I hope that I hope you'll get a chance to listen to it as a symphony or the concert that it is. Thank you.